How much does betrayal really cost? That's the question I've come to ask myself again and again, since the night my life burned to the ground. I was married to Laura for 7 years. We met after her first marriage fell apart. She called me her fresh start, the man who saved her from heartbreak. I didn't just marry her. I became a father to her daughter, Natalie, who was barely 12 when I entered their lives. I raised that girl like my own. School events, late-night illnesses, cheering from the sidelines at soccer games. I thought that loyalty, that love, meant something. But I learned the hard way. Some people don't value loyalty. They resent it. It all started with the little things. A faint scent of cologne on her jacket that wasn't mine. Business meetings that lasted late into the night but never showed up on her calendar. A distant look in her eyes, like she wasn't even seeing me anymore. Then, on a rainy Thursday evening, I found hotel receipts stuffed in the side pocket of her gym bag. Reservations made under a name I'd never heard before. My stomach sank. When I confronted her, she didn't deny it. She didn't even flinch. She casually poured herself a glass of wine, sat on the couch and said, "You're not enough for me anymore." No emotion. No apology. Just a cold, casual confession like she was discussing the weather. Then came the real blow. She calmly informed me she'd already spoken to a lawyer. If I filed for divorce, she'd take me for everything. Our home, my savings, even my reputation. I was stunned, but I didn't shout. I didn't beg. I simply walked out, keys in hand, and drove until I reached the edge of town. I screamed until my throat burned, clutching the steering wheel, knowing deep down I was done. I work in IT, not wealthy, but I live comfortably, responsibly. But to Laura and Natalie, that wasn't enough. They saw me as a stepping stone. Placeholder. When I finally broke the news to Natalie, who had come home from college for the weekend, I expected some shock, maybe sadness. But she laughed. Mocked me. Said my paycheck was a joke. Sneered about how her mother was finally leveling up. She even questioned why Laura married me in the first place. In that moment, every memory, the birthday parties, the Christmas mornings, the late-night math tutoring, turned to ash. But what they didn't know was that I wasn't walking into this blind. 2 weeks before, when my gut first twisted with suspicion, I had hired a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, a bulldog with a track record of dismantling liars like Laura. Turns out she'd miscalculated everything. The house, bought in my name before we married. The cars, leased under my business. The savings, locked in a trust left by my late father. Laura had contributed nothing, not a penny. She assumed she'd get half. In the end, she walked away with nothing but her clothes and an apartment she could barely afford. Natalie moved in with her biological father, who had zero interest in bailing Laura out financially. And the man she cheated with. He ghosted her a month later, left the city, blocked her on everything. Meanwhile, I found peace in a small apartment across town. Simpler life. Quiet. No games, no lies. Then they started crawling back. Late-night texts from Laura, pleased to talk. Emails from Natalie. No apologies, just bold demands for money. She even had the gall to say, "You always said you'd be there for me." Then Laura showed up at my door. She looked broken, dark circles, makeup smeared, desperation dripping from every word. She said she made a mistake. That she thought she was upgrading but realized too late she'd thrown away the only man who ever truly cared. I let her speak for 5 minutes. She blamed her affair on feeling invisible. She insisted Natalie didn't mean what she said. Then she reached for my hand. That's when I calmly handed her a folder. Inside were copies of hotel receipts, screenshots of her texts bragging about draining me in court, messages to friends about how she'd be free by Christmas. Her face drained of color. I looked her in the eye and said, "I wanted to believe this was just a moment of weakness. But this wasn't a mistake. This was a strategy. A war you thought you'd win. And you laughed at me." I closed the door without another word. She stood there sobbing, begging me to listen, but I didn't open it again. Life after that. Peaceful. I slept better. Laughed more. Started seeing someone new, Hannah. A woman who didn't care about my paycheck or status. She listened. He saw me. Laura and Natalie, though. They were left with silence. The kind of silence that reminds you exactly what you've lost. But just when I thought it was over, the storm returned. A week later, my HR department contacted me. An anonymous complaint accusing me of misconduct. Vague, baseless, but enough to raise eyebrows. The IP address. Traced back to Laura's apartment. Then came a call to Hannah, from Laura herself. She tried to poison the well, calling me a liar, a fraud. Hannah didn't flinch. She replied, "I think you're confusing a man who walked away from abuse with one who abandons people." Blick. Laura hung up. But karma wasn't finished yet. I received a phone call from a woman I didn't recognize. Derek's wife. Derek, the man Laura blew everything up for, was married. Worse, he had 3 other girlfriends, and one was pregnant. Laura had no idea. But she found out fast. Derek vanished overnight, leaving Laura in shambles. She was evicted. Natalie dropped out of college. Her biological father refused to help. Then came a letter 8 pages long. Laura's handwriting, pleading, explaining how lonely she'd been. She blamed everything on neglect and said Natalie regretted her cruelty. I didn't reply. But I kept the letter. Not out of nostalgia, but to remind myself how it felt to read their apologies and feel nothing. Then, just 3 days ago, the past tried to claw its way back. Hannah called me after work. Natalie had shown up at her office, unannounced. She waited for 3 hours, then followed Hannah outside in the pouring rain, crying. "I didn't mean what I said to him," she wept. "He was the only real father I ever had." Hannah, composed as always, simply replied, "He heard you the first time. And this time he believed it." Natalie tried to hand her a letter, but Hannah refused. That night, I found an envelope tucked under my windshield wiper. Inside were photos. Snapshots of the life I'd shared with Natalie. I was building a snowman. Her curled up on my chest during thunderstorms. A Father's Day card that read, "You're my hero." No letter. Just pictures. I didn't cry. But I remembered. I remembered every time I bit my tongue to keep the peace. Every time I put them ahead of myself. And how they both laughed the moment I finally chose myself. And that memory. That was enough. Last night the final knock came. Laura again, soaked from the rain. This time, Natalie stood beside her, clutching a battered photo album. "We have nowhere else to go," Laura whispered. Natalie's voice cracked. "You don't owe us anything. But you were the only one who ever showed up." I looked at them. Looked at that album. And I spoke clearly. "You're right. I did show up. I gave everything, my heart, my time, my loyalty. And you both spat on it." Laura sobbed harder. "We're not asking for forgiveness. We just want a second chance. Even just as friends." I raised my hand, cutting her off. "I'm not in the business of fixing the people who shattered me." And I closed the door. For good. They didn't just lose a man that night. They lost the one person who would have walked through fire to save them. And I lost the ones who taught me exactly what fire feels like.